Thank you so much, y'all. Y ya nos vamos las Mayras. Adiós.
And organizing cultural spaces. So next slide. Okay, anybody know who this is? Who? Just shout out the name. Oh, good. Okay, I was like, oh, if we don't know, okay, great. So Nara Smith is part of an explosion of content creators, also known as trad wives, women who seek to go back to gender norms of the 1950s, where they make peanut butter from scratch and have conservative values. Nara is also an immigrant from South Africa. Despite that, these women, trad wives, who are trying to go back to traditional values, they are mostly the bread makers. They're the people who make money in their household. She's also a model, and her husband is a very, very big Trump supporter. So the thing about this is that she's not talking about her politics, but she's showing it by saying what her culture is and what she wants to go back to. They're putting forward of an environment, of their political environment without saying stuff. So that's why I said, this is why I knew Trump was gonna win, when a Black immigrant content creator, the most popular one, was out there organizing trad wives. So next, culture shifts politics, not the other way around. Culture shifts what? Not the other way around. One more time. Culture shifts what? Not the other way around. Okay, so let's talk about the culture in 2024. Next slide. Okay, click again. So we want to understand why Trump won. Look at pop culture. Click one more time. This is a great tweet. So yeah, I thought we were all about Brat Summer, right? Like Brat Summer, the neon green was everywhere. But in actual reality, that was just a window of where we were at. The thing that was popular in 2024, we thought it was for the girls and the gays, but actually, next. So what was popular? Next. The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Great show. I highly recommend, 10 out of 10, no notes. Next, the America's Sweethearts, the Dallas cheerleaders. Next, who does anybody know who these are? These are the Nelk Boys. They're Canadians. They started out as being jackass for like YouTube, and now they're like right wingers that had Trump on his show. They're Canadians. They can't even vote here. And the next slide, or not next slide, sorry. Does anybody who know these guys? The Costco guys. They're from Boca Raton, Florida. They go into Costco and go, oh, what is this? It's really annoying, but very popular. They ended up on Jimmy Fallon. So next. So what was actually ruling in data and numbers? The Billboard 100, the top 100, was ruled by men despite being Brat Summer. Everything that showed white maleness was popular data-wise. People actually went to movies, bought tickets for Twisters. How are you gonna make another Twister? Men outperform women on the Billboard Hot 100 the entirety of 2024. I wouldn't think that when everybody was doing the Apple, that dance. So what was actually in vogue was the straight white male in 2024. So next, what does this mean? What do we do? Shift culture, right? But there's ways of doing it. So do I think it's all doom and gloom? No. We must win the culture war. Next, we must capture people where they're at. So this is a recent thing that happened. And I think this happens a lot, or not, I know. Cultural moments have been really lost with movements, progressives, you name it, but they're a way to radicalize people. So this happened a couple weeks ago. He's tweeting, how much is Hasbro? Click. The reason why is because the person who creates D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, like the person who's in charge of the content, said that, look, 40 years ago when Dungeons and Dragons first came out, it was insensitive and derogatory towards women, people of color. And so Elon Musk tweeted, how much is Hasbro? And then click. Hasbro stock went up. This was a couple weeks ago. Hasbro also owns Transformers, a lot of things. They use these moments to radicalize people. They did this with Star Wars. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I have an Ewok tattoo on my arm. They did this with Budweiser. They're not going after taking down a corporation. They're going after radicalizing people and having an entry point. People care about their Budweiser. People care about what they, the games they play. People care about this stuff. And so we need to contest in these cultural fights. And I say this to myself, just as my identity radicalized me, what also radicalized me was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer kick ass. What also radicalized me is watching Ellen say, F Ellen, but Ellen say she was gay and my mom crying because she had never seen representation of her on screen. The moral is people care about what they read, what they see on TV, and what they are fans of. Next. So we must organize people where they are at. One of the projects that I run is called The Real Housewives of Politics. Thank you. And in 2016, Andy did a poll on Watch What Happens Live, where millions of people watch, and 64% of their viewers said that they were voting for Trump. He did a poll 3 weeks before this election, and 75% of the viewers said that they were voting for Kamala. I'm not saying we did all that, but we created a space for the culture to shift within the Real Housewives fandom, and I am proud of that. So where are we going to contest and organize next? So Disney fans, it's huge. Do you know that this is a thing called Dapper Day? Oh my God, it's when people literally show up to Disney parks and they wear 1940s stuff, but they're dressed as their characters. That's a little view of it. There's D23, the convention where 100,000 people go to participate in all of what Disney owns, which is Marvel now, Star Wars, right? So next. Also, okay, what do folks think that is? That big stadium full of people. What is that? Say it louder. The biggest form of entertainment in the world is gaming. Billion-dollar industry. People are now getting scholarships to college to play esports. It is not going anywhere. A lot of people say that gamers are incels and have, said, oh, we don't want to mess with that. We don't want to mess with that. But there are a lot of gaming content creators. The biggest streams on, the top 10 biggest streams on Twitch the night of the election, 9 of them were right-wingers. And one of them was a left-winger, Hassan. Yeah. Yep. So people are actually, through their gaming, through these places, right, showing that they're organizing. But they're not calling it organizing. They're not yelling at people for getting shit wrong. They're not being boring. They're interesting. They're dynamic. They talk to you about nerdy stuff, which I love. And in the corner, too, something that's popped off that we're going to start organizing around is romantasy. fantasy romance novels. It's great. It's great. Fourth Wing, everybody? No? Okay. A Court of Thrones, of Court of Thrones and Roses. So when we examine this and we think about where we need to show up, there are many places where we need to show up to actually go into the culture. A lot of people were like, where's the Joe Rogan of the left? If you're asking yourself that question, you have no idea the history of Joe Rogan. He started out as an MMA announcer. MMA at that time wasn't super conservative. It started to get conservative over the years. Then he was on that Fear Factor show. That's what I remember, like the snakes and shit. And then he became a podcast host. We need to find these folks who are already interested in things and organize them, right? We need to actually go through the motions on that. So I'll give you what my last thing is, a case study about what we've also been doing. Next. So what we've been doing, and I'm going to tell a little story about the jersey I'm wearing because I'm wearing it for a reason. Because also a lot of this is a form of worker organizing. And I don't think people realize this, because for every form of entertainment, there are thousands of workers, millions of workers that put themselves into that. So I'm wearing this jersey. It's the New York Sirens. We just got our name. It is, so many in the history of hockey, women's hockey specifically, there were so many times that professional hockey started and stopped. A lot of the leagues didn't actually pay their players. They said stipends. So in 2017 and 18, women hockey players, they created the Professional Women Hockey Players Association, and they launched a boycott saying they're not going to play for any league that doesn't pay them, any league that doesn't give them paid time off, any league, and that destroyed all the hockey leagues. And now we have, in season 2, because they just started, a professional women's hockey league that they actually have equity in it and have workers. So I say that all to say is that women's sports has been a really, really big, a big thing for us, and we've been organizing women's basketball fans. We didn't realize, we were saying we were gonna, and we organized basketball fans as well through what we call the basketball house. But what we've been doing is showing up and throwing watch parties across the country of women's basketball, because you got to also participate. We, that photo on the bottom, the WNBA All-Star Game was in Phoenix this year, and we had about 300 people show up. An agent told me that it was the best. We had a drag event, and we gave out tattoos. I got one that said gender roles, RIP. And we had local artists from the Phoenix community show up, and it has been a blast. And we've also been able to organize the grass tops of those communities, the basketball players themselves. Does anybody know who that is up there? If you're from Phoenix, you better know. That's Copper. Kalia Copper is from North Philly. She's on the Phoenix Mercury. She's a gold-winning Olympian this year. And we've been working with Tasha Cloud and all of the different basketball folks, but I'm not gonna go straight to celebrities. I'm gonna go to their fans first. So many people are like, Nalini, can you get this celebrity to, no. If you don't have a comprehensive strategy about organizing their fans, a celebrity showing up means nothing. Means nothing. So what did that look like for us? Next slide. We had 24 events in 10 states, 1,000 unique attendees who'd never attended a Working Families Party event ever. We had 3,100 unique registrants who have never registered to anything of Working Families Party. And that's what we did in year 1. This graphic is Watch Party Philly. We organized with people who are already doing their watch parties. And this is like their fall winter schedule. And I didn't even know that they were gonna put us on there, but they're like sponsored by Working Families Party, because they're Working Families Party now. So what is my challenge? I have a challenge for Mi Gente specifically, because a lot of folks are like, where do we start? Where do we start? But there's something that's happening in 2 years. Next slide. So my challenge to Mi Gente to organize, does anybody know what's happening in 2 years? If I told you this, don't speak. All right, click. All over the country, and in Mexico and in Canada, there are going to be World Cup games. Thousands of people are not going to be able to go to them because they won't be able to afford them. What does it look like if we organize watch parties? Because our gente are going to pay attention to the World Cup. It's a year of the midterms. And so and the World Cup lasts a couple months, right? So if you're actually organizing people, meeting people where they're at, and here's the thing, and I learned this when I went to Brazil, because in Brazil, they were like, the World Cup destroyed like half of Rio and Sao Paulo, and they were like, we're never gonna go against the World Cup. Our people like soccer too much, football. They're like, we're never gonna do this. So we also have to understand when we put our own biases aside of acting like people are as angry as they are with certain things, to actually meet them where they're at. Everybody talked about the manosphere post the election. Not one single person, and look, I understand Mike Tyson is a convicted rapist, but if you really had a problem, because I know where all my males in my family were at, on November 15th, they were watching the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. And the fact that nobody did watch parties around that's the kind of contestation we need to do. And with that, adieu.
Okay, so Nalini, great, big setup, FIFA, lots of things, including lots of workers that are gonna be building all those stages, all that space to make the games happen. So that's what I'm gonna talk to you about workers. So let's talk about workers from our gente. Oh, I got a little winded, I didn't need to, that was good. Okay, how many of you work? Raise your hand. Si están in between gigs, it's okay, raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay, look around. Keep your hands up. Who works? Pues todos. Our gente, somos trabajadores. And that's what I want to talk about. Like our gente, somos trabajadores. That's a big part of how we show up every day. Si es because we have to, or because we're really proud of what we do every day as workers. So let me just throw you a couple of stats before I move into, so then why is this important, verdad? Latinos in this country make up almost 20% of the workforce. 20%. That means 32 million of us are making this country run every day. And get this, more than half of those, 59% of those, son Mexicanos, of Mexican heritage. I'm gonna say it again. 59% of 32 million workers, Latino workers in the US, are from Mexican heritage. Half of them are immigrant. So half of those 32 million are immigrant. And I'm gonna tell you this, that number is lowballing because that number probably is not tracking more than the 11 million undocumented workers, ¿verdad? In the country. So if you're wondering, so what kind of jobs do we do, ¿verdad? Hey. And that literally is my next, obvio, un poquito de todo, ¿verdad? Our gente, we're creative, we figure it out. But here are the top 5 industries where the biggest concentration of Latina workers are in, okay? Follow with me. And then let me see some reactions. If it makes sense, you're like, what? Okay. Agriculture, obvio, ¿verdad? Janitorial and maintenance. Construction and extraction. Food preparation and service. And the last one, transportation and moving materials. Truck drivers, People that are carrying all this weight all this time, ¿verdad? Let me give you one last stat. Out of those 32 million Latina workers in the United States, only 9% of them are part of a union. So out of 32 million, only 2.8 million workers are part of a union. Okay, I just want you to sit with that number. Latina people are workers, and we care about economic issues. The election results showed us how much our people, like the majority of everybody else, cared so much about the economic issues. And I'm gonna say something controversial, and it's okay. If you wanna talk about it after, I'm ready, let's go. Our people care more about right now, about paying their rent, paying their utilities, making sure they have enough money to feed their families and themselves, than they care about mass deportation. I want you to sit with that. No estoy diciendo que that is fine y que está bien, ¿verdad? And that we shouldn't do something about it. But I'm just asking us to listen. And I think in this moment, our people care more about their everyday material conditions, that they care about the climate, deportations. Y es that they don't feel it, ¿verdad? Pero we've talked to so many working class people, and we've talked to Latina and immigrant people, and when we've said, pero what about the mass deportations? Their response is, but that's not me. I'm working hard. Yo no soy un criminal, ¿verdad? So there's this cognitive dissonance, ¿verdad? That we're gonna have to face, and we have to sit with it. I'm asking all of us that we need to sit with it, and I've been sitting with it. And I know that our people are working so damn hard for so damn little. Every day we wake up and we work so damn hard for so damn little. And we've all heard the stories, ¿verdad? This is where I feel like, 20-year-old Nady maybe wouldn't have said this, pero we all hear the stories, ¿verdad? In our kitchen tables, o cuando nos están regañando, todo lo que hicimos para que tú tuvieras una mejor oportunidad, ¿verdad? All the things our families have done, the people before us, whether we agree with it or not, so that us could have a better shot. That's what they feel every day. Right? So when they think about all the things that I did for you to have a better shot, what's in front of their mind isn't what's happening to everyone else. It's like what's happening here to me and to our neighbors, and then we go to someone else, right? And I think that's really important for us to really sit with that. So let's think about then, in this moment, right? The whole section is like, ¿qué sigue? Right? Hacia dónde? What's the path that we gotta make out of a really hard moment? And I want us to think about what it could look like for more activists, for more organizers, for more of us, right? To support working people win campaigns. To support working people win campaigns under Trump 2.0. To win campaigns that really change their material conditions now. Right? Not in 10 years from now, not in 20 years from now, but right now. I want us to think about that. And I've been doing a little bit of that for the last 16 years. I've dedicated a lot of my time to think about that. From pretending to be a garment worker in LA to sneak into a sweatshop so I can steal the label of the garments that were being made in that place so that we can win millions of dollars of unpaid wages to a big group of Latina garment workers. I was like, I'm brown, short, and speak Spanish. They probably think I'm one of them. So let's go. Let's use that in my advantage, ¿verdad? We got to get creative. From delivering white grape juice in jars to building managers in West LA, to protest the fact that they didn't have bathrooms for car wash workers in the basement in that fancy building, Shout out to Rosemary Molina, our Deputy Executive Director, because that was her idea. They freaked out so much that time. They called the bomb threat squad because it was like toxic liquids because they looked like pee. That was our goal. To then working with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, where during the first Trump administration, we created an associate membership for thousands of undocumented workers in the South and Southwest to join a union for the first time ever. And these are the types of things, the tactics, right, that we have to think through. What are the right strategies? What are the right tactics? What is it going to require of us in this moment? You know, Marisa said this earlier, like, we're not going to switch our mission, but we have to think about our tactics. And we have to meet people, like Nalini said, where they're at. Right? And sometimes that means we got to be uncomfortable in meeting people where they're at, even when we disagree with our people. I know I'm having lots of heated debates con mi propia familia, the Latinos in my household, because we don't agree. But listen, if I give up on my tío, then I'm giving up on all of our tíos. And if we give up on them, someone else is talking to them. And it ain't us. We're not going to be able to find lasting solutions if we keep giving up on each other because we don't agree on everything, every time, every single moment we take a step forward in this time. We're going to have to get uncomfortable and we're going to have to do that work. We can give up on each other. It also doesn't mean that then you have to put yourselves in harm's way. So también there's a spectrum, right? But just throwing each other away. This is one of the main things we did. I know we've been talking about we're coming up in 10 years. 10 years ago when so many of us, Adelina, Marisa, Carlos, like we were this yeast to now watching all of you, and I don't really know most of you, and it's really great. It's that was actually one of the values. We did not want to throw each other under the bus and throw each other away, even if we didn't agree on everything. We know we needed a space, a vehicle to come together in, and that's part of the DNA of Mi Gente. And I think more than ever, we are gonna have to do that again, and we're gonna have to do it in a way that makes sense to us to advance what we know needs to happen, but to bring more of us along, because we're gonna need more of us, more spaces like this one all over the country to actually darle pa'lante and face whatever is coming. So let's start there. Let's start by not giving up on each other. Thank you. And we have one more.
Salina Duarte, vengo de México, soy periodista, pero también soy educadora popular en el Instituto de Formación Política de Morena. Y me da muchísimo gusto estar aquí. Le agradezco a GLAR, le agradezco a mi gente, a nuestra gente, que estemos aquí todos y todas reunidas. Agradecerle a Adelina, de quien soy fan, a Marisa, a tantos compañeros y compañeras que además nos hemos encontrado en cursos, talleres, en Tucson, aquí en Atlanta, en todos lados. De verdad, muchísimas gracias. Y primero decir que para mí es un gusto estar en una ciudad con tanta historia. Se nos olvida muchas veces, la pregunta es ¿hacia dónde vamos? Pero yo quiero cambiar la pregunta a ¿de dónde venimos? Somos la suma, compañeros y compañeras, de las luchas de nuestros pueblos. Estamos parados hoy en un lugar y sentados en una misma sala, cosa que no podíamos hacer hace 70 años. Vamos a pensar en a dónde vamos, sabiendo que venimos de esas luchas entre clases, y hay que tener bien claro, compañeras y compañeros, que a nosotros no nos quieren juntos porque somos capaces de hacer revoluciones. Somos capaces de cambiar el mundo que nos dijeron que no podíamos cambiar. La historia no está escrita, la estamos haciendo y la hacemos en diferentes latitudes, que no se nos olvide. No nos quieren solo por ser mexicanos, solo por ser dominicanos, puertorriqueños, chilenos, argentinos. No nos quieren porque nos rebelamos hace muchos años y les dijimos por qué solo nosotros tenemos que ser fuerza de trabajo. ¿Por qué nosotros solo tenemos que brindarles oro, plata, recursos naturales? Nosotros queremos cambiar el mundo, no para ser como ellos y venir a explotar a otra gente. Queremos cambiar el mundo porque somos iguales, porque ellos nos dijeron que quienes venían en barco valían más que quienes ya estábamos en estas tierras. Que no se nos olvide en el momento de explicar por qué llega Donald Trump a la presidencia, porque ese es el origen de este país y nos quieren insistir en que las cosas ya eran así. No es cierto. Este país se construyó sobre el genocidio, se construyó sobre la explotación de hombres y mujeres. Y además nos vienen a decir que por qué nosotros estamos aquí, cuando nosotros, dicen los tigres del norte, nosotros no cruzamos la frontera nos cruzó a nosotros. Además hay una industria cultural, compas, que no se nos olvide, que nos ha hecho imaginar mejor el fin del mundo que el fin de este sistema. Si a ustedes les pregunto cómo se mira un mundo sin capitalismo, ¿alguien se lo imagina? ¿Cómo es? El dinero no nos rige. Pero es más fácil, compañeros, compañeras, si les pregunto a ustedes cómo se va a acabar el mundo, todos tienen una opción. Se imaginan que vienen meteoritos, que vienen zombies, que desaparecemos todas y todas, pero nos arrebataron la simple capacidad de imaginarnos en otro sistema que no sea de la dominación del hombre por el hombre. Tenemos que volver a imaginar, tenemos que volver a cuestionarnos de dónde venimos. Van a tener problemas los traductores, pero como decimos en México, no estamos inventando el agua tibia. Esta lucha, compañeros y compañeras, ya la dieron muchísima gente antes que nosotros. Y creemos que somos los primeros que queremos acabar con el machismo, que somos las primeras que queremos acabar con el racismo, que somos los primeros que queremos acabar con la homofobia. Esa lucha se viene dando generaciones tras generaciones y a nosotros nos hicieron creer que somos los primeros y las primeras. Por eso es tan importante recurrir a la historia, porque durante décadas, durante siglos, hay gente que viene a hacer revoluciones, que viene a cambiar ese status quo. Pero también hay que internacionalizarnos, porque la lucha que muchos y muchos están dando aquí es la que estamos dando en México, es la que estamos dando en Chile, pero también en Sudáfrica, en Indonesia, en todos lados. El sur no es solo, ¿no? Por eso empezamos con esta canción, Somos el Sur. Es el sur global. Ese sur al que le impusieron cómo pensar, cómo actuar, qué hacer y qué decir. Y la gente dijo, ya basta. Pero también hay que recordar que Estados Unidos no es Estados Unidos de hace unas décadas. Este país no ha logrado recuperarse de esa crisis económica financiera del 2008. Es un país profundamente endeudado. Hay quienes hemos vivido aquí y decimos, nos enquistaron, nos inyectaron el American Dream y es difícil sacarse esa idea, aun cuando salimos a la calle y vemos que no es realidad. Creemos que un día lo va a hacer. Y eso no es así. Estados Unidos hoy, en este país, hay más armas que personas. ¿Cómo es posible eso? ¿Cómo es posible que con protestas multitudinarias por todo el mundo no hemos logrado detener el genocidio en Palestina? Porque nos demuestran que solo son unos cuantos los que mandan, que no importa cuánto gritemos, ellos tienen la capacidad de decisión. Y eso, compañeros y compañeras, tiene que cambiar. ¿Y saben por qué sí puede cambiar? Porque ya ha cambiado en otros momentos. Por ahí hay un texto de Humberto Eco en donde habla de las 14 características del fascismo. Y habla de que Mussolini, Hitler, Franco tenían muchas características en común en la década de los 30, en donde unas de ellas era el machismo, la misoginia, pero también el heroísmo, el tradicionalismo, imagínense. Y esto lo escribió hace muchos años. Creer que en el pasado todo fue mejor, como si en el pasado no hubiese habido opresión. ¿Pero les suena esta frase de Make America Great Again? ¿No les suena tan parecido a lo que hacía Hitler, Mussolini? No importa cómo lo definamos, el fascismo cayó en su momento y cayó por la solidaridad de los pueblos, porque se hicieron brigadas antifascistas desde todo el mundo y fueron a combatir al fascismo, porque hubo rebeldes que hicieron conciencia del lugar que ocupábamos, pero también porque hicieron unidad. En las izquierdas nos encanta pelear. Y es que el de al lado no, porque me sacó la lengua, porque no me pagó la tanda. Y la derecha los une un interés de clase. La derecha saben bien qué quieren dinero, quieren explotar, quieren ganar. Así sea a costa de asesinar a 43,000 personas en Palestina. ¿Y la izquierda qué estamos haciendo? ¿Qué horizonte estamos construyendo? En ese horizonte, compañeros y compañeras, yo les vengo a invitar a que nos organicemos, a que pensemos cómo sí se puede acabar este sistema. Y eso solo va a venir con algo que yo siempre resumo, que es información militante. Logramos, ¿no?, hacer un mapeo sobre la CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, un montón de medios que tienen al servicio los grandes oligarcas globales. ¿Y dónde están nuestros medios? ¿Cómo estamos disputando las narrativas? ¿Dónde estamos construyendo el noticiero de la clase trabajadora? ¿Dónde estamos haciendo documentales para hacer memoria histórica? Necesitamos información militante. Necesitamos formación política. Y muchas de las izquierdas, incluso generacionalmente, han abandonado el hábito de leer. Hemos abandonado el hábito de discutir, de disentir. Si no estamos de acuerdo, está bien, pero hay que hablarlo y hay que debatir el horizonte que queremos construir. Hay que organizarnos. Aporta mucho un TikTok, pero hay que salir a hacer lo que ayer, envidiable totalmente, nos contaba Adelina que tocaron miles de puertas y yo decía, híjole, qué envidia. Pero hay que hacerlo. Hay que volver y nunca abandonar el territorio. Las redes sociales son importantes, pero no sabemos si la gente está cambiando de conciencia en el momento en que nos da like. Necesitamos hablar con ellos. No son el enemigo, compañeros y compañeras, cuando preguntaban hace rato de a quién le echamos la culpa, a otros latinos no. No podemos echarle la culpa a ellos. Ellos y ellas son como nosotros, son clase trabajadora. Pero han estado por décadas sumidos viendo CNN. Han estado absorbiendo lo que dice Hollywood. Ellos no son el enemigo. Quienes estamos aquí, asumo, somos militantes. ¿Y por qué somos militantes de causas? Porque creemos que hay otro mundo más allá que podemos construir. Yo no quiero llegar a ser CEO de Amazon. Yo no quiero explotar a otra gente. Hay que repensarnos los horizontes de la izquierda. Los hemos abandonado totalmente y entonces cuando cada quien consigue lo inmediato, lo que necesita, abandona la lucha. Porque no hay conciencia de que el de al lado todavía no come 3 veces al día. Porque no hay conciencia de que hay quienes no tienen para pagar su renta. La lucha no puede acabar incluso cuando tengamos nuestros documentos. Este sistema es profundamente desigual y esa es una vía, pero las desigualdades son tan estructurales y están ancladas en tantas décadas que no podemos parar de luchar. Y cuando logremos que alguien genere esa conciencia de clase, entonces la victoria será mucho más inmediata, será mucho más pronta. Entonces necesitamos información militante, necesitamos formación política, necesitamos organización popular de territorio, de base. Necesitamos movilización, pero también necesitamos internacionalización. Y vengo cerrando, compañeros, compañeras, porque yo les he dicho a Adelina que el peligro es darme el micrófono y luego quitármelo. Yo puedo estar aquí hablando horas. Yo creo que sí se puede. Hay gobiernos en América Latina, sí se puede, dice aquí la compañerita, tal vez de las más chiquitas de esta sala. Hubo gobiernos que ya nos demostraron, mirando hacia el sur en la llamada década ganada, que sí se puede. Durante esa década de los años 2000 se sacaron a 70 millones de latinoamericanos y latinoamericanas de la pobreza. Pero no fue suficiente porque no hubo un proceso de formación, de concientización. Países como Argentina, que fueron la vanguardia en derechos de mujeres, en derechos en general, hoy tienen a Milei. Porque votar a la izquierda no significa ser de izquierda. La gente tiene que volverse de izquierda en teoría y praxis. La gente vota a la izquierda porque hay programas sociales. La gente vota a la izquierda porque va a tener cómo pagar la renta. Pero ser de izquierda es trascender la conciencia de que hay otro mundo que nos necesita para verlo nacer. Vengo de un país, como muchas familiares o ustedes, que es México. Hace 7 años, si me dijeran lo que estaba pasando o pasaría hoy en el país, les juro que no lo creo. Nos metieron en una guerra contra el narco que nos había dejado cientos de miles de personas asesinadas. Y hace unos días nos dijeron, hace unas semanas, tal vez meses, que 10 millones de personas habían salido de la pobreza, que más del 30% se había disminuido el feminicidio, que estaba por fin, desde el año 2006, por fin estaba cayendo la violencia en nuestro país, que ahora va a haber más universidades que nunca, que hoy 4 de cada 5 familias recibe un programa social. Y hay gente, y les demostraríamos, ¿no?, a muchos, que sí se puede. Mientras Andrés Manuel López Obrador ganó con 30 millones de votos, Claudia Sheinbaum ganó con 36 millones de votos. Y pudieran haber sido más si mucha de la comunidad mexicana aquí hubiese ido a votar. Y eso es algo que nos tenemos que poner en la agenda, compañeros y compañeras, porque no es posible que viendo lo que tenemos adelante, no hagamos el mínimo esfuerzo. Paradójicamente, votar es lo más fácil de una revolución. Lo más fácil. Ustedes dirán, bueno, ven y organiza a la gente a que vote. Bueno, lo hacemos. Pero votar es solo un primer paso. Lo que hay que aspirar es a construir poder popular. Un poder popular feminista, antirracista, pero también antiimperialista y anticapitalista. No hay que abandonar el horizonte. Y cierro con una frase de Antonio Gramsci, que era un sociólogo que fundó también el Partido Comunista Italiano y que al menos en el Instituto de Formación, que tengo grandes compañeros y compañeras a quienes admiro, quiero y aprendo todos los días de ellos y ellas, tenemos especial simpatía por esta frase porque puede llegar a resumir qué tenemos por delante. Instrúyanse porque necesitaremos de toda nuestra inteligencia. Conmuévanse porque necesitaremos de todo nuestro entusiasmo. Organícense porque necesitaremos de toda nuestra fuerza. Y yo agregaría, hagamos comunidad con mi gente, con nuestra gente en el norte y en el sur, porque más tarde que temprano, compañeros y compañeras, yo sé que venceremos. Muchas gracias.
Sí, arriba, Lina.
Ok, ¿qué les parecieron los 3 speakers? The translators are going to kill me because I do Spanglish and they're like, stick to one language. Okay, all right, so speaking of action, we have a little request from you, from our host.
Gracias, gracias, sí. Daría un poco para 2 cosas con 2 mensajes y un poco para seguir lo que Alina comenta, es que, y esto es en palabras de López Obrador, el pueblo es el único que salva al pueblo. No se les olvide. Y asimismo hoy venimos a ustedes pidiéndoles ayuda para que puedan firmar una petición de un compañero miembro de GLAR desde hace 16 años. Tenemos ya una petición para solicitar el cierre a través de la discreción fiscal en su caso de un proceso de deportación. Entonces, pedí permiso y autorización aquí a las compañeras para que, pues finalmente, como dice también por ahí, ¿verdad?, que no nos vamos a definir por lo que decimos que hacemos, sino por lo que hacemos, ¿verdad? Y parte de firmar la petición es tomar acción, ¿verdad? Y no solamente hablar y aprender, pero hacer algo. Y aquí por eso, pues les vengo a pedir su ayuda. Pues espero que nos ayuden con estas firmas que van dirigidas al Departamento de Seguridad Nacional, como un intento de buscar la discreción fiscal de nuestro compañero Julio Quesada. Pues ahora sí creo que ya tenemos hambre. ¿Sí? Ya, entonces le voy a pasar el micrófono a mi compañera Mayra. Muchas gracias.
Okay. Suggested that media, the articles, the podcast, we had these phenomenal speakers. Can I have just 3 people raise their hand to give me your takeaway or your pending question that you have for this weekend that you want compas to hear? Because we're gonna collectively like digest and think about next steps. So, volunteers, raise your hand. Allá veo ya. Get up and give us your feedback.
Bueno, lanzarnos, esa es la respuesta, lanzarnos a la lucha, no quedarnos esperando que algo pase, porque ya estamos cansados. Ni demócratas ni republicanos van a solucionar nuestras vidas, solo nosotros.
Marisa, there was someone right here.
Lánzate 2024. Me llevo la fuerza que tenemos como comunidad, la fuerza que tenemos como migrantes, latinos, latinas, latinex, y me llevo el poder de que como mujeres transgénero, aquí representando a la comunidad latina, tenemos mucho poder para organizarnos. Me queda bien grabada en la mente la palabra organizar, organizar y organizar. Y quiero repetir una palabra, una frase de una compañera mía que está por aquí, Jocelyn Mendoza, que siempre la repite. Ella dice, no somos competencia, juntas somos resistencia. Me llevo eso y llévense eso también. Organizamos en nuestras ciudades locales porque ya vieron la fuerza que tenemos como comunidad y como migrantes. Y estos 4 años que vienen van a ser muy fuertes, muy difíciles y necesitamos toda esa fuerza que estamos absorbiendo aquí en este encuentro. Gracias.
Una más, ok.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Araceli, vengo desde Houston. Yo solo les quiero decir a todos, hay que perder el miedo. Todos en algún momento tenemos que perder el miedo y hagámonos unidos. Usted no espere que vaya a votar alguien más, dígale, póngale el ejemplo, diga, empiezo yo. Yo voy a votar, llévese al más chismoso, al que siempre lo mira, a la comadre, al compadre, al hijo, dile, si yo no tengo voto, tú votas por mí. A ese amigo que tiene al lado, dígale, si tú no tienes voto, si yo no tengo voto, tú vota por mí. Yo te acompaño, yo te dirijo, yo te educo. Pero empecemos por uno. Yo voy a educar, me voy a proponer y voy a todos a ponerles un challenge, un reto a todos, a retarlos, que en estas próximas elecciones no vayamos solos. Nos llevemos a 2 a 3 compañeros y diga, hoy me acompañas tú a votar y juntos vamos a hacer la diferencia. Pero hay que poner el ejemplo empezando por nosotros. Gracias.
Okay, compañeros. Thank you so much. It's not just about voting, it's about being a militant, right? And about organizing. So with that, I think we're going to break for lunch. Thank you so much.